Good day everyone, today we're going to explore my workflow in creating a lo-fi style animation in Blender Grease Pencil and all the tips and tricks to make your lo-fi animation looks great. I've set up a simple room blockout with one rig mixamo character, so for lo-fi animation, our target are to create a cozy feeling to our viewer. So the best way is to create a room that you feel most comfortable in. If you don't have any idea, just pull out an IKEA catalog and choose which setup you like the most. For the character animation, I first animate the chair and the character for reference. I add some mesh to represent her hijab, so it'll be easier for me to track the shape. Then, I'll be adding a grease pencil object for the girl. For animation, our target are to create a slow and chill movement, so avoid making our character running or fighting a bad guy. It's more about composition and vibe rather than motion. So, creating a believable animation are important too. Next time when you are doing nothing and sitting around, note the way you are sitting. Maybe it can be your next lo-fi inspiration. Note this, learn to use Sculpt tool. It's make it much easier to create a continuous line art, which are very important when creating a frame by frame animation. For this animation, I rarely draw any new line art, most of them are just from the first frame. It is important to remember, even though you have a 3D model to trace on, you need a basic understanding of anatomy and solid drawing and proportion and many other things. But having a 3D model make it easier to animate a subtle movement. So as I said, Sculpt tool are very helpful in this stage. I mainly use the grab tool to adjust the line and holding shift to quickly access the smooth tool. You can also jump to edit mode to select and move particular stroke that you want. The next part is coloring. For my color palette, I use mainly green as the base color. Coloring in Grease Pencil are such a breeze, where I can extend some strokes to close any gap in the frame and use shift to change from bucket tool to pen tool to close any gap quickly. Another perks of using Grease Pencil are you can easily change the color on the fly if you use the material system. The only problem are to create a new color, it took a bit more time than I like. Alright, now let's take a look at 3D object. To blend in with the toon looks for the Grease Pencil, the main recipe are outline and shader. So for the shader, I take it from the sample file on blender.org. But if you want to create it yourself, a simple toon shader will suffice. Be experimental with the color and go crazy. For the outline, other than using Grease Pencil as an outline object, I also use the inverted solidify modifier. To create this, you just need to add solidify modifier, set it to invert, change the material ID to match the material order on the material list. Tada! Easy outline. Alright, let's talk about the room. In this project, the room have changed multiple times, but at last I stick with this single bunk bed design that looks super IKEA-ish. In designing the room, try to imagine you are living in that space. My trick are to just add as many details as possible, then remove any element that bring the least impact to your work. Surprisingly, this will make your work faster than trying to plan everything before even starting to work on it. Alright, let's add some texture on our room. For texture, we will mainly use Grease Pencil element. For the wall, just draw some brick texture and use the array modifier to repeat the pattern. Same goes to the tile underneath. Then by changing this from origin to surface, we can draw detail all around the 3D object. So I'll be adding some wood grain for the bed and other necessary detail to make the scene much more interesting. For lo-fi animation, especially for room scene, adding more detail will make your scene much more interesting, so don't worry about too much detail or anything. The last step now are... adding more detail. You can add new object using 3D object, but I'll be using more Grease Pencil element to speed things up. I'm just going to fill up the shelves with book, cloth, and other extra detail. Even though it's not really realistic, I'm going to add some vine plant around the shelf. Alright, before we render, we're gonna add some depth of field. For Grease Pencil object that are close to the camera, add some blur effect. And for the camera itself, enable depth of field and play with the setting until the blur match the Grease Pencil object. The sky background, I'll be using a gradient texture on a plane and some microsphere with emission shadow on it. With everything set, hit the render button and enjoy your lo-fi animation. Before we end, if you would like to support my future content, I have an affiliate link of a Blender tutorial on how to create animal style background in Blender and Photoshop easily. The link is in the description. See ya!